Looking at the map right now, we're tracking a powerful winter setup that's going to impact a large portion of the United States over the coming days. This is not a weak cold front passing through. This is a strong Arctic air mass plunging southward from central Canada, and it's combining with an active storm system to create significant winter weather across multiple regions. Let's break down exactly what's happening and what you need to know. The large-scale pattern tells us everything we need to understand about this setup. We have a deep trough digging into the central and eastern United States. A trough is essentially a dip in the jet stream that allows cold air to surge southward, and right now, that's exactly what's happening. On top of that, we have strong Arctic high pressure building south from Canada. High pressure is what's pushing that cold air into the US and keeping it locked in place. Along the southern edge of that cold air, we have a developing low pressure system that's riding along the thermal boundary. That thermal boundary is the zone where very cold air to the north meets milder air to the south, and it's what we call a baroclinic zone. When you have this kind of setup, the atmosphere becomes very active. This pattern supports widespread below normal temperatures, expanding snow coverage, strong wind development, and the potential for coastal storm intensification. This is a classic amplified winter regime, and it's the kind of pattern that can produce significant impacts. Let's start by talking about where the coldest air is positioned, because that's the foundation of everything else. The cold air core is centered over the northern plains and upper Midwest. We're talking about North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and extending up into Manitoba and Ontario in Canada. This is the source region for the Arctic air. Temperatures in this zone are deeply below freezing, and this cold air is dense and stable at the surface. What that means is any precipitation that falls into this air is going to stay frozen. It's going to be snow, period. Wind chill is going to become a serious issue if wind speeds increase, which they likely will. And secondary storm systems are going to strengthen as they move along the southern boundary of this cold air mass. If you're in Minneapolis, you're already locked into deep cold, and you're going to see additional snowfall with strong wind chill on top of it. This is serious cold, and it's not going anywhere quickly. Now let's talk about the snow axis, because this is where we're going to see the most organized and potentially heavy snowfall. The precipitation layer shows a clear snow band extending from Nebraska through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and into upstate New York. This is what we call the primary deformation band, and it's positioned north of the low pressure track. This is where the dynamics are strongest, and it's where snow is going to accumulate. If you're in Chicago, you're looking at moderate snowfall with strong winds. That combination is going to create blowing snow conditions, which means reduced visibility and hazardous travel. Even if the snow totals aren't extreme, the wind is going to make it feel like more of an event than the numbers might suggest. Detroit is in a similar situation. Snow is likely, and depending on wind direction, there could be some lake effect enhancement. When cold air moves over the relatively warmer waters of Lake Michigan or Lake Erie, it picks up additional moisture, and that can boost snowfall totals in localized areas. Minneapolis, as we already mentioned, is in the deep cold sector. Additional snowfall is possible, but the bigger story there is going to be the wind chill. Actual temperatures combined with wind are going to create dangerous conditions. Now let's talk about the Northeast, and this is critical because this is where track sensitivity really comes into play. The map shows cold air firmly in place across upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. If the low-pressure system tracks favorably, upstate New York is going to see significant snow. Buffalo and Rochester could experience lake effect enhancement on top of the main system snow. Albany is likely in the snow zone as well. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is something we need to watch closely. New York City. New York City is near the transition zone. This is the zone where small changes in the storm track can lead to very different outcomes. If the storm tracks slightly offshore, meaning further east, New York City has heavier snow potential. If it tracks inland, meaning further west, the city could see more mixing or even start as rain before transitioning to snow. Either way, strong winds are likely regardless of precipitation type. When you have a coastal low-pressure system like this, the pressure gradient can create significant wind gusts. Inland, that wind combined with snow creates blowing snow and reduced visibility. Along the coast, wind gusts can be strong enough to cause localized power outages or bring down tree limbs. The key point here is track sensitivity. A shift of just 50 miles in the storm's path can change the forecast dramatically for cities in this transition zone. So if you're in New York City, Philadelphia, or any of the coastal cities in the Northeast, don't get locked into one specific forecast. Stay flexible, watch for updates, and understand that adjustments are likely as we get closer to the event. Wind is going to be a major part of this story across a wide area. The pressure gradient tightens behind the low-pressure system, and that means strong winds across the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and the Northeast. Wind has multiple impacts. First, it creates wind chill. The actual temperature might be 15 degrees, but if the wind is blowing at 30 miles per hour, it's going to feel like it's well below zero. That's dangerous cold, and frostbite can occur on exposed skin in just minutes. Second, wind creates blowing snow. In areas where snow is falling or already on the ground, the wind lifts that snow and reduces visibility dramatically. You could be driving on a highway, and suddenly you can't see more than a few feet in front of you. That's a recipe for multi-car pileups and serious accidents. Third, wind increases the risk of power outages. When you combine wind with heavy, wet snow or ice accumulation on power lines can snap. And in the middle of winter, losing power is more than just an inconvenience. It's a safety issue. Let's move south and talk about the mid-Atlantic and southeast. States like Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and North Carolina are all going to be affected, but the type of precipitation varies depending on location. In the northern sections of these states, we're looking at snow or a wintry mix. In the southern sections, cold rain is more likely, with colder air moving in behind the front. Washington, D.C. is likely near the transition zone, just like New York City. Snow potential depends on the exact track of the system. If the low track's a bit further south, DC could see several inches of snow. If it tracks further north, DC might see mostly rain with just a period of snow at the end. This is classic mid-Atlantic uncertainty when it comes to winter storms. Further south, in states like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, we're looking at cold rain. Gulf moisture is feeding into the system, and that's sustaining the precipitation. Along the frontal boundary, there could even be a line of thunderstorms. If atmospheric instability overlaps with wind shear, we could see severe weather potential in localized zones. It's not the primary story, but it's something to watch for, especially in the deep south, where strong to severe storms can develop even in winter setups. Florida is going to feel this system as well. Cold air is pushing unusually far south. Northern Florida could see a significant temperature drop, and there's a possible freeze risk if the cold core expands further south. Central and South Florida will be cooler than normal with windy post-frontal conditions. This is the kind of cold that Florida doesn't see often, and when it does, it gets attention because of the potential impacts on agriculture and cold-sensitive wildlife. Out west, the situation is more stable compared to what's happening in the central and eastern US. However, the Rockies could see snow with passing disturbances. Denver is looking at cold conditions with possible snow showers. Salt Lake City has mountain snow potential, especially in the higher elevations, but overall the main action is east of the Rockies. The West is in a relatively calmer pattern, while the rest of the country deals with this major winter system. Let's talk about Canada and Mexico briefly, because they're part of this story too. Ontario and Quebec are feeding cold air southward into the US. This is the source region for the Arctic air mass. Southern Ontario is likely seeing snow as well. If the storm strengthens offshore, Atlantic Canada could see coastal impacts, including wind and heavy precipitation. In Mexico, northern states like Chihuahua and Coahuila could see some cold spillover. Temperatures will be cooler than normal, which is notable for northern Mexico. Now, let's do a quick city-by-city breakdown for some of the most populated areas, because I know a lot of you want to know what's happening in your specific city. New York City, snow or mixed risk with strong winds. Track sensitivity is high. Small changes in the storm path will determine whether you see several inches of snow or mostly rain. Buffalo, heavy snow with lake effect enhancement. This is going to be a significant event for the Buffalo area. Prepare for travel impacts. Chicago, moderate snow with blowing snow conditions. Visibility is going to be reduced. Winds will make it feel much colder than the actual temperature. Detroit, snow with gusty winds. Possible lake enhancement depending on wind direction. Travel will be hazardous. Minneapolis, deep cold with dangerous wind chill. Additional snowfall possible. This is serious cold. Limit time outdoors. Boston, snow potential depending on track. If the storm tracks favorably, Boston could see significant accumulation. Watch for updates. Philadelphia, transition zone risk. This is another city where the forecast can change based on small track adjustments. Washington, D.C., rain-snow line sensitivity. The exact precipitation type will depend on the storm track. Atlanta, cold rain with post-frontal chill. Not a snow event for Atlanta, but it's going to be cold and wet. Dallas, cold rain with gusty winds. Temperatures will drop significantly behind the front. Denver, cold with snow potential, especially in the foothills and mountains. The main forecast message here is that this is a cold-driven winter storm setup. We have strong Arctic air entrenched across the northern US. We have an active low-pressure system riding along the temperature boundary. We have snow across the Midwest and Northeast. We have wind-driven impacts that are going to affect multiple regions, and we have track sensitivity for major cities, especially along the coast. This is not a short-lived front that moves through and disappears. This is a structured winter pattern with multi-day implications. The cold is going to stick around. Additional weather systems could follow along similar tracks, and impacts are going to be widespread and significant. If you're in an affected area, now is the time to prepare. Check your supplies, make sure your heating system is working, have a plan for if you lose power, and stay informed because this is a major winter event.